All right, 3, 2, 1. Looks like we're recording. So, hey, welcome everybody back to the Sustainiacs. I'm Mike Vincent, and I got a great show for you today. This is going to be a really, really cool one. He is Eric, and I believe it's pronounced Liedtke. Is that right?
It's Liedtke in America, but it's Liedtke in German.
Liedtke. Okay, cool. I was introduced to you by a mutual friend, Luke Haverhals, right?
Yep.
Which is like means awesome banana or something like that, or awesome car. Or something. I forget what his last name means, like awesome car or something like that. I forget what it is.
No, I didn't get that deep with him. But we haven't talked about meaning of last names.
Yeah, right. Yeah, right. Exactly. But anyways, hey, so he produces materials. You're producing the materials. You did collaborative efforts, but you do all kinds of cool stuff. You're with, or you co-founded and CEO of a place called, in case you didn't know this, Eric, you are co-founder and CEO of the Unless Collective. Can you give us like the quick, like 30,000 foot view on that? We'll dig into that, but I want to get to your background on how you got to this place.
Yeah. Sure. Like, listen. First thing, I'm not your normal startup entrepreneur. This is not my first rodeo. I've been in the fashion industry almost 30 years now, and most of that time, if not all of it, 26 of that was with Adidas,
Mm-hmm.
and loved it. Did everything basically from next to the mailroom to the boardroom at the end of it. But the one thing I became very clear about was I was having trouble reconciling in my personal life and my professional life the make, take, and throw away culture of fashion. And when
Yeah,
you
yeah.
see and hear the harm that fashion and this kind of like planned obsolescence of 3, 6, 9 months collections does to the world, you have trouble whispering yourself to sleep every night. So I've got children; they're going to have children. They've got hopefully they have children. So there's a legacy thing here in play, and I was when I left Adidas, I was 54 years old, maybe 53, and I figured I had a couple more chapters left in me. I've got the opportunity to really try to bring a Tesla-like moment to the fashion industry,
Hmm.
and I had a lot of great people that I've worked with through the years that felt very similar to me. So we went out and started a company called Unless Collective, which is really founded on the principle of being a lighthouse brand for others to follow, which means we want to find a better way than the planned obsolescence of basically fossil fuel or fossil fashion, which is most of fashion your listeners may know by now if they're following you is made out of plastics or polyesters, which is all petroleum based. And those are wonderful materials when you're looking for cheapness and you're looking for flexibility and durability and things, but they're terrible materials when you talk about um, what happens to them when you're done using them because they're forever
Yeah.
materials.
And in particular, what you're talking about is like fast fashion type of stuff, right?
Well,
I mean,
I mean, fashion in
is that
general is 3 trillion, right? It's a 3 trillion annual number. It's and arguably fashion in general. I'm talking about all the things you wear, and whether it be shirts, hats, shoes, whatever. Those things are everywhere, and that's a 3 trillion industry every year. And what basically it does is it never really goes away, even though it's planned to go away out of your closet. But when you get rid of it, it goes into the world, and either you can thrift it and you can downcycle as much as you want, but plastics don't do that very well, and ultimately it ends up in being in landfills and breaking down in smaller pieces. And if it's not in landfills, then people are burning it, which is even worse because it rains down on us, or they throw it in the ocean, which then breaks down again. So plastic never really goes away. Polyester really never goes away. Nylon really never goes away. It just goes down to smaller and smaller pieces. It enters our food system. So the simple question you asked me is, what is Unless Collective? Unless Collective is the first 100% plant and mineral based fashion brand, which means everything we make is planned to go away harmlessly at the end of its life and break down back into nutrients and minerals.
it's very, very cool stuff. I mean, the chemistry behind it and the thought process behind it is absolutely amazing. And I know your story from Adidas, at least when I read in your bio and what you just explained there. But you were a competitive swimmer at one point. Did that kind of drive? Was it just being at Adidas that did this to you, or you had this in you, and that kind of just made you realize, wait a minute, there's a better way to do
Yeah, I
things?
mean, I haven't really never thought about what swimming or sports had to do with it. I mean, I got to Adidas because I love doing sports. If I wasn't doing sports, haven't done sports, or talking about sports, I wasn't really happy. So I found myself in the sporting goods world, which became Adidas, which became a half my life career, and that was wonderful. Loved it. When I left, I thought like I had the best job in the world, but I was exposed to the problem of plastics and the urgency of our environment and climate by Cyril Gooch, the founder of Parley for the Oceans, in
Hmm.
2014.
Right.
Walked in my office one day and said, "Are you interested in helping save the oceans?" And I was like, "Yeah." And part of that was because I love water. I swam, I surf, I scuba dive, I snorkel, I whatever. I kayak.
Yeah.
Whatever the water will let me do, I will try to do it at some level of competence. And when your heart's set on that, you love the animals that play there, the animals that call that home. And so when you start to see the degradation of that environment, and you see the harm that's being caused to sea life and the fish stocks and the sea mammals and everything else that's being destroyed by lots of different things in the ocean. But let's stick to plastics. Then you realize the impact you have as a head of I was president of Adidas for 6 years, and
Hmm.
you know you start to see the impact that has on them and the role you play in it. So I did everything I could to change the ship's direction at Adidas, and I'm very proud of the steps we took, including our partnership with Parley and our battle with plastics overall. But I recognize at a certain point you can't take a public company and insist that it disrupts itself and the entire industry overnight. And I wanted to move things a lot faster, which is why I came to the conclusion to walk away from what I felt was the best job for me and start something new, and bring this kind of like disruption to the industry by having a 100% fashion brand made out of plants and minerals, made out of things that will harmlessly go away at end of life versus petrochemicals.
That's interesting to me because one of the questions I had for you is you were obviously kicking ass at Adidas, right? I mean, you're running the place. You're creating $8 billion in revenues in 6 years out of this new. I guess it's there. You started the idea of moving into like a sustainable streetwear, et cetera, like that, like you said, with Parley
We,
from the oceans, plastic, et cetera. The question was, why did you leave Adidas to do this? And it was because of the urgency of timeline. You wanted to speed up, right? Because you were already making that
I
impact there,
mean,
correct?
a lot of people ask me that question. I mean, why would you leave? Why you could have had so much more impact staying there and trying to move them? And I feel that's a very valid question. I didn't take the decision lightly. I actually
Right.
thought about it for many years, because 2014 was when I started my journey in understanding the discovery, if you will, of the impact fashion has on the environment we live in. 2019 is when I left, so it's not like I jumped ship, from one month to the next. I took that impetus from Cyril and others and sustainability officers and knowledgeable people around me, and did everything I could at Adidas, sorry, to change it. And I think, like I said, I'm very proud of what we did, and we eliminated plastic bags, plastic shopping bags. We eliminated plastic bottles on our campuses and our stores. We
Mm-hmm.
eliminated all plastic beads in our beauty care with our licensees. We made a plan to get off of virgin polyester in all of our clothing. That's 70% of the clothing that Adidas did, and some of
Wow.
the footwear. We made a plan to get off of virgin polyester onto recycled polyester by 2024. Those things aren't easy lifts, and it takes a lot of management to get the entire 22 billion sales organization, moving in that direction. But we did it. Super proud of it, and they still continue to march along that line. I still, even doing all those things, I felt like I took Adidas as far as I could. And I thought, if I can create this change at Adidas, why can't I go out and try to create a change for the industry? And I'm
Mm-hmm.
either arrogant or cocky or confident enough or foolish enough to think that I might be able to apply some of the learnings I had and was able to do at Adidas and do similar things for the plant-based polymer revolution that I feel is upon us in bringing that to fashion in general.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I think you just described just about everybody who's an entrepreneur, right? Cocky,
Yeah.
arrogant, crazy, all that stuff I think applies, right? And trying to do this stuff. But what's the difference between like a major? So we've got a lot of people that are trying to make changes, right? And people inside major corporations like Adidas, and you've got that ship moving in the right direction, right? And you decided to go. What about those that are staying there? What's the advice there as to how to stick to it and change that ship? Because I talked to a lot of people outside of this show, and many of them will try and say, hey, it's just not sustainable economically. You can't do
Yeah.
it. You can't change it. You can't do this. You can't do that. What's the key? I mean, in your bio you talk about open source management type of thing, right? And an open source approach to business, and
Yeah.
is that the key to getting this done? Is there a cultural shift that has to happen?
Well, first of all, like don't misunderstand me. There's everyone has a role to play. Like I always tell people, it's going to take a village. This is not a
Yeah.
competitive sector of proprietary information. Some people may view that. I don't subscribe to that viewpoint. I did at one point, but I don't anymore. I think we need to all like look at this our greater purpose and finding a better solution for fashion to create on a better feedstock to create against, so that we create less harm at the end of its life is really it's not a singular goal of mine. It should be the entire goal of the industry. And I think everybody has to move in a sequential step to get there. I think the big incumbent brands, if you will, they have a responsibility to get there as well, but they have to take smaller bites probably than what they can because of their fiduciary responsibilities to their shareholders. Obviously, using new sources of materials, new feedstocks, plant-based polymers, if you will, versus petroleum is not the same. You're not going to get the same unit economics. And so you can't just, as a shareholder, you can, as a company that's relying to provide dividends and profit to their shareholders and growth, you can't just go one end to the other. You've got to do it in increments. And that's what we try to do with the recycled polyester phase in. But I will say it's no secret that plant-based solutions or lab-grown solutions or something, or solutions that go away harmlessly at the end of life is not a secret to anybody in the industry. Everybody knows that's the holy grail. It's very hard to do that from within a existing business when you've got all sorts of other quarterly and monthly and annual results you have to report, and to do that overnight is very difficult. So I stepped away with the intention thinking, hey, I really liked where we took Adidas to. I'm really proud of that, and I'm proud of the work they continue to do. But I've got this thing in my head that says maybe we can be a lighthouse for others and jumpstart this plant-based solution. And that's why I'm going out and finding solutions to that was my, what was the first 3 years or first 2 years of my life's work after I left Adidas. And that's how I found Luke, our mutual friend, at Natural Fiber Welding. So to me, it's like we all have a role to play. I like to have my role being on the bleeding edge of things, and really like we were with Ocean Plastics in 2014. Nobody was talking about that before. Now everybody's talking about it. Now, if I can do the same thing for plant-based solutions in 2022, that then in 2026 or 27, everybody's talking about it. It's a hygiene factor. I've done my job. I've completed my last 2 chapters, and now I can go back to surfing and playing in the water.
And I think that's a great way to look at it. I know some others that look at it that way. They don't need to be the one to say, look, I did all of this, but the inspiration to others to keep that moving going and to grow that movement to something that is positively impactful is really a great goal to have. And I applaud you for that, because that's tremendous. And that's how open source happens, right? Maybe it's not the Unless Collective that becomes the greatest thing in a planet, but if you cause the greatest thing to happen or part of that inspiration to happen, that's the ultimate goal, right? That's where things go.
We as a collective are not about creating generational wealth. We as a collective are about creating generational change. That is our number one goal. And so we do that through piloting new solutions, or engineering, let's call that. We engineer new solutions of, taking these materials, putting it together in this way, distributing it this way, collecting it, putting it, working with industrial composters, putting it back in the ground and growing new plants. So we're trying to pilot or engineer this process we're calling regenerative fashion. And I'm not trying to greenwash anything. I'm trying to say I think that's what we're doing, because regenerative is what we add value at every step of the way. We are regenerating because we're making sure our product is built with the end in mind, where the end being we can grow fresh feedstock from our product when it's done. Therefore, it is as Luke would call it, the big loop, right? The big circle, the natural circle. and not just reusing it. Now we will take all sorts of steps in between there to try to repair and resell and thrift and stuff. But when it's done, when it finally meets its maker, the product will go away and become 100% nutrient rich plant and worm food.
Yeah, and that's I was going to bring that up, the part about the big loop or the big circle, because he points out that nature is really it's circular, and there's your inspiration, right? Everything in nature, the whole universe is circular in nature, and you can't really fight that. If you can tap into that, so to speak, kind of a Zen type of thing, if you will, or Eastern philosophical type of thing. But if you can tap into that, now you've got a solution. Is that kind of how you look at it?
100%. And that's why, and that's why we love Luke. I mean, that's why, when Luke and I met 3 years ago, right when I stepped out of Adidas, it was like love at first sight. We both had the same vision for the industry. He was coming at it from a science, polymer, chemistry standpoint, and I'm coming at it from a brand standpoint. And I think the two of us are a match made in heaven, to be quite honest. So super excited to bring the Degenerate to life, which we launched last month. And
I love the name.
Yeah.
I love the name. That is really cool stuff. That's the shoe, and it looks quite cool. In fact, the little film there of you grabbing that shoe, or somebody is, and just grinding it up. Is that all it takes at the end? Hey, I'm sick of this shoe. Just grind it up. And
if we, again, I want to be respectful to wearing it as long as you can, reselling it, thrifting, all that.
Yes.
When it's done. Yeah, you can precondition it and grind it up so it goes way faster, right? And all of our stuff will grind up and go into what we're doing is we're grinding up. We're working with industrial composter in California to make sure that it goes away, and and it grows fresh plants. And then we're working with regenerative farms that will take that soil and hopefully grow new cotton and new rubber soil, new rubber plants. So the idea is it really gets into regenerative agriculture coming from regenerative fashion. But
that is very cool.
That's not to say if you get bored with it and you just want to throw it in the backyard.
I was exaggerating a little bit. I was just,
it comes from harmless elements and minerals. It will go away harmlessly. It's just a matter of how long it will take. That's the key. Is like if you don't distort it through chemical fermentation and you make it some sort of polyester type molecule, then it will break apart and go back away. And that's where Luke's company called Natural Fiber Welding is about welding things together lighter, not fermenting them and distorting the polymer creation altogether and making it basically a petrochemical type polymer.
Yeah, he talks about the laws of thermodynamics a lot, and how once you introduce the concept of entropy, it makes things impossible at best, right? To kind of pull them back.
Hey, there's a side story. You can cut it out. Maybe your listeners don't want to know, but I live in the Pacific Northwest. We have shoes washing up like on a quite regular basis. You can look it up on the Google with feet in them. So there's this thing that's been going on for like a couple I don't know, a couple decades, maybe 30 years. And what happens is people fall off boats, they die, their whole bodies get eaten up by organisms. But the shoes since it's wrapped in a polyester bag, the foot doesn't go away naturally. So again, you can course correct me on this one, but there's a reason why footwear is the way it is, made out of petroleum that won't go away. The ocean can't get in it, the critters can't get in it, and therefore the foot is actually protected and entombed.
Wow! So you have feet in shoes washing up on the shores in the Pacific.
Not on a daily basis, but let's say there's been like a dozen of them over a decade or so. But yeah, it's just it's like a little visual for you to imagine. Okay, I get why shoes are forever materials now. They're made out of forever materials.
I got you. So we don't need to organize like a cleanup party just for that. I got you. That sounds. So let me ask you this. Okay, you're talking about the circularity and everything else, and I get all that with the plant based and all the kind of, and I love it. By the way, it is the ultimate because you don't have to worry about its end of life. Really, you just go, the energy and everything is just going back and it's regenerating, which is very, very cool. Why not? Or should we just stop the recycling of plastics into clothing and stuff like redoing, recycling the polyester, et cetera? Or what was your thought on that?
I think so. If I can interpret your question, so Right now, there's virgin polyester being used in most of the goods coming out of all the fashion industry. 60% of them are coming out from polyesters. There's a virgin pipeline of that. There's a recycled pipeline of that. So the recycled polyesters, the RPET is its handle, they are coming from bottles. Now, a plastic bottle, and here, I'll get one for a second. A plastic bottle is the perfect circular, machine, right? This thing's made to come to be drunk out of, go back, be recycled, and be ground up and repelletized and back into another bottle. And it can do that 20 times based upon degradation rates and stuff. It's made to do it 20 times.
20 times.
That is a circular model for a plastic bottle. Now, when you're in the apparel industry and you're like, I want to tell my consumer that these are recycled, so this is sustainable, you're taking a circular thing of 20 times out of the circularity of it. You're making a piece of clothing with it, and it's a one and done. So once it's in clothing form, there's no recycling. There's no recycling at all in the fashion sense.
Yeah, that's an issue. That's an issue.
So you can do that. And like I said, I was a big proponent of that when I was at Adidas because I saw our PET being better than virgin PET. I think that makes sense. Sure. But when I opened my eyes wider then and saw the total landscape, I was like, well, that's still a problem. It's still plastics. So it still breaks down. It still sheds microplastic. It still goes in our food system, still goes in our deep lung tissue, still goes in our babies, still goes in our blood. All that stuff's still happening, by the way, degrading our soil. And now I'm taking something that was circular out of circularity and into what we call a linear dead end, dead end one and done. So it's again not ideal. So again, one of the reasons I stepped aside from Adidas is I have to applaud the big guys for doing that and being so committed to it. But at the same time, I feel like we need to show a better way. And I also feel like the consumer is being asked to bear too much of the brunt of understanding all the different sustainability claims that are out there.
100%. The sustainability claims are very, very difficult, and some of them are probably nefarious and should be charged with greenwashing, and some of them just need to be slapped and re-educated, I believe, that because they're trying to do the right thing, they just maybe don't know that they're not, right? Would that be better if they just waited 20 times and then used it in clothing, or do they have to have it as close to the virgin polyester as
That's
possible?
a question for a chemist. I think at the point of 20 times, the reason why it doesn't go around again is because I think the degradation of the polymers are so weak at that point, it just needs to go into a down cycle situation.
Yeah, I got you.
So I think the rebound effect. But again, that's a Luke conversation for the next time you have him on. I think from a brand standpoint, though, you are challenged with being the face to the consumer of this movement, right? So my issue with, again, why one of the reasons I left is because everyone's making their own sustainability claims. Right? The consumer requires a PhD right now to figure out which one's better than that one. Is it,
Yeah.
And I don't want to name names because I don't want to get labeled that I'm a hater on anybody. I just think like everybody's got their own agendas and their own initiatives, and I think it's wonderful. But sooner or later, we're losing the trees despite the forest, if you will. And you need to tell a story of the consumer to the consumer that they understand. So the one thing we really like about where we landed on with Unless is we start with the end in mind. And the best story of that is like we don't get into any claims about LCAs or about any of the different, biofabrications or bioplastics or RPETs or cutting room floors or anything. We just say, what happens to this when you're done with it? Michael, what happens to this when you're done with it? And the simple answer is it goes harmlessly away back into the ground. Consumers can see that. And then we visualize it, like you said earlier, with the degenerate kind of language or the product actually being partially biodegrading, or composting back into the earth. So when consumers see that, they readily get it. And I think we miss that as an industry in the simple storytelling mechanics that show, hey, beautiful product. Oh, and I can feel good about it because I see it going away in front of my eyes, when you display it to me. And you've named it something interesting like degenerate. Oh, I'm in. I mean, it doesn't have to be like, what's a life cycle analysis? What's a carbon footprint? Now you're asking the consumer to think harder and say, well, I don't know what that is. I don't even know what RPET is. Is that better than VPET? It's like, so to me,
right.
I've just learned through my years of working with consumers, you can't put friction in their way. You can't make them learn a new languages to buy something they want to buy.
No, it's got to be easily recognizable, and it's got to be just it's the same with recycling. It's so confusing. That's why our participation rate sucks, and one of the reasons that so much of our recycling doesn't get done because of contamination of other products and other things that are inside there, because it's so confusing. Like you said, what can you, what can't you? Is this the right PET? Is it the wrong PET? Is what's a number two? What's a number three? What's HD? What's LP? All that, it's absolutely crazy. I get that. I get that 100%. Let's dig more into the Unless Collective and how you run it and what is going on there. So specifically, you're talking about the stuff is plant-based, and you talked about it goes in there. What is the material? The materials in there? Is it made with plant-based, or is it made out of 100% plant-based? Because that's one of the things that confuses a lot of people too.
Yeah, great question. We are 100%. Well, everything we do is 100% plants, and we will say minerals because, again, it's 100% plants when it comes to our apparel, whether it be a woven whatever it may be, woven or knit. But when it comes to footwear, that's where Luke's team at Natural Fiber Welding really stepped up. Now their recipes are protected in IP, so I don't know the ins and outs of what they do. But when I talk to Luke, it's 100% plants and minerals. We've got that vetted and validated through soil chemistry tests that we get after we grind up the product. So everything is okay that way. Our challenge when we got the outsole, the midsole, the upper, the laces, when we put it all together, we had to construct it in a way that honored the raw materials they were giving us. So whether how we use cottons and linens and threads and not use polyesters and synthetics, not use petroleum-based glues, but a natural latex glue. So everything had to be really looked at. Even the aglet on the end of your lace tips, which is always coated in plastic, or if you're buying a premium product, maybe metal. Ours is done with a thread made from linens. So it's really we just think about every little solution. The dyes that go into our products, whether it be on a shirt or whether it be on footwear, again have to be oil free. So it seems like can be easy, but the processes again are very engineered to accommodate what we're doing. And I would say like closures on a button-down shirt, right? Seems pretty harmless. All buttons are made pretty much of plastic. We had to go out and source a Carozzo nutshell from the Philippines that we could put on it. And so
they're made out of a nutshell.
Yeah, because that's how buttons were made before 1960. Yeah, sure. It was. So to me, we actually had buttons beforehand, and now we're looking into different zipper techniques and things like that. But all those introduced plastics, which we won't do. So when you ask us if we're 100%, we are 100%. I mean, we joke around the office like, would you eat a vegan burger that was only 50% vegan? I mean, it's like that. That kind of defeats the process, right?
So Made with vegetables made out of vegetables.
Made with plants, but then there's this 50% cow part. So to me, I think
and juices were the worst, right? I mean, when my kids were younger, it was like, well, you don't get a juice that's made with 100% juice.
Yeah, exactly.
That doesn't mean anything.
So the answer is but that's where the magic comes in, because that's really hard to do it, which is why the industry veteran team that we put together knows how to build these things from scratch. Then we also have the factory relations to get factories to actually want to work with a small startup that's doing tiny little volumes in a very unique and different way than they're used to working. So you can imagine some of the conversations that, as our creative director always tells me, he's like, well, every little thing is a long and dark hallway that we have to walk down, and we embrace that hallway, but it's long and it's dark for a while until we find our way to the end. And I'm happy to say today we found our way to the end of a complete head to toe brand for the first time in the industry's history.
It is amazing, and one of the things that I like to point out and go through. Well, first of all, looking at the prices, I thought they were going to be crazy. They're not.
Yeah.
They're totally in line with what I would buy that for if it wasn't, right? And normally you think, wow, I'm going to pay 2 to 3 amount. And then, I'm in logistics. I've been in logistics for 35 years, and thinking about the supply chain and the level of purchasing power and or purchasing that you're going to make because of the size of your company, which, no offense, is not very large.
No.
Comparatively speaking, you're not putting Adidas out of business, right? With it. No. Knock on, maybe we will someday at least convert them 100% to what you're doing because it's the right thing. But the costs. How do you manage that supply chain and the distribution there? It's got to be light years more difficult than Adidas, or am I wrong?
No, for sure. I mean, I think you know that answer better than I do. If you come from supply chain, so a little clip tag that we make out of plants and water based dyes is probably 10 times more expensive than a polyester one. I mean, it's at least 10x. So, and then you
Right.
do small volumes. So, we've had to raise a fair amount of capital to go and afford ourselves the luxury of bringing this to market and giving the consumer a choice to buy it. And we have intentionally kept our prices accessible. I think you can always find a cheaper T-shirt out there. I mean, you can always find a cheaper
Sure.
and stuff. But I think, we've tried to make it so it's accessible. We've tried to do some benchmarking on other brands in the industry that would be premium from a streetwear standpoint, but
Mhm.
not out of the hemisphere of the majority of our consumers. Having said that, we'd like to get to the Shein audience that's primarily Gen Z and get them to convert over. But I think they're buying T-shirts for the price of a cup of coffee. So we aren't there yet. But I think the more volumes we get, the more partners we get, the more people we get on this, the more we can get our price points low, because people like the story, they want to engage in it, and they will come around. It's a matter of scaling with urgency, and that's why we've taken to partnering up with brands and really trying to get there with as a collaborative collective versus just a standalone brand.
And that's brilliant. Because that was my next question, was the volume and getting there. If how do I put this? There's a big movement in logistics and others to have this kind of co-opetition, right? These collaborative in areas where you don't normally compete anyways, but all can benefit from it. Are there opportunities in what you're doing here to do that across other brands and bring people together to bring down that price point? Because it would seem to me that the more people are into this and buying this, the more infrastructure you have, the from ground all the way around a circle back to ground, right? Like you were talking about the production.
100%. I mean, I think in short, that's always been the business model. So we wanted to be
Yeah,
we set ourselves out, in the beginning to be a lighthouse brand. So we wanted to figure out all the different things that need to go to engineer this process. And while we were building that brand, we figured out, hey, we built this regenerative creation model that is A plus B plus C plus D plus all the equals all the way around the circle. And I was like, that's not something that we want to protect or get into lawsuits on IP processing and things like that. That's something we want to share and breathe into the world once we've gone through the hard yards. So now
yeah,
a very intentional strategy to collaborate with brands. We've had one that's launched already. We've got a few in the works right now because we want to bring the power of our story and our knowledge to a bigger platform, to a wider distribution, to a wider audience, so we can scale this, like you said, not just for unit economics, at the factory floor, but to help bring urgency to the cause of getting off of polyester-based product.
yeah, yeah. That's the ultimate mission, right?
Exactly. So for the two go hand in hand, and we're continuing to talk to brands and offering this as an opportunity up, and we'll let you know next time we get together how that's going.
Yeah, well, we're definitely going to be getting together because, well, at least I'm going to have to order some stuff from you for sure. We'll talk about that later.
Yes.
But so let me. I want to get into the brand a little bit more as well. But let me ask you this one more question about the whole recycling process and what is going on. I am with a company. We've talked about that, Ocean Plastic Technologies. One of the people that is on my advisory board is this woman who is very familiar with recycling and different permits and EPR. Yeah, EPR mandates and legislation that has gone different things like that. And one of the things was they repealed a single use plastic bag ban, and she was part of that effort to repeal it. Even though she's with us, and we're trying to recycle all the plastics we possibly can, because the plastic bags were actually being recycled, and taking them out of it made the recycling process less profitable or more costly, and they had to shut the whole thing down. So they brought it back in order to figure out the economics, right? I mean, eventually we need to get rid of it. Does your effort have any negative impact like that? Or where's your thought process, I guess, on the recycling of plastics, et cetera, and how we move that forward and hopefully wean ourselves eventually from plastics completely all over the place? Because it's not just clothing. I mean, Luke is supplying automotive, right?
Yeah. No, I think you bring up a good question. It's like, and that's where the sequential approach I think comes in. If
Yeah.
if you're talking to Eric Liedtke, still sitting on the board of Adidas, it's a virgin polyester to a recycled polyester to somehow building in some circular programs, which we did at the time with Futurecraft, which was a single material product we tried to make. The problem there is we never really figured out how to get post-consumer waste back back to us so we could grind it up and make new shoes out of the single polyurethane. Uh,
That's the difficult part of it, right? I mean, that's the infrastructure part of all recycling is from end consumer back into manufacturing is the part that is just really inefficient and terrible, right?
that is the um, that is the part that no one has been able to really solve for, right? So I think there's a
Mhm.
lot of thrifting going on, which gives me hope by consumers buying secondary product. There's not a lot of brands that have figured out how to get product back into their hands to either do a single material future loop, type of thing where Adidas
Yeah.
did. Now I see On Cyclone doing it. I think Solomon's doing it and doing an effort there. So to me, we went the most extreme route with Unless. We went to, let's get off of polyester and plastics altogether. There is a role for circularity plastics, and people have figured out how to build product. We did at Adidas 6 years ago with the Futurecraft series, and On has theirs now that they've done with Arkema, the chemistry company out of France, and I think Solomon's also working with Arkema. So there is chemistry companies like BASF works with Adidas, Arkema
Sure.
working with these guys that are figuring out how to make a single material product that then they can weld under a microwave condition together versus using glues, because that's always the big
Oh,
contaminant
wow.
is glues. The point I'm concerned about is those products are not getting back in any way, shape, or form that I'm aware of from the
Yeah.
consumer back to the brand to make it again. So it's not scalable. So when I
Yeah,
look
I agree. I
when
agree.
when I look at the world in fashion, I think you have to find solutions that are scalable against, as you said, existing infrastructure. So can I still make things the way they're currently made, or I have to change everything? And that's a big check with the plant-based stuff we talked about with Less on apparel and footwear. And can I then, with more volume, can I get the price points down? And that's another big check. And therefore, if it's scalable, and I can, and I used to look out when I was Adidas, if I can look out 3-5 years max to get to parity pricing, then I know I've got a real innovation on my hands. So I can't really comment on stuff outside of fashion. I just know that plastic is not being recycled in a meaningful way in fashion
Yeah.
whatsoever. Never has, and I don't believe ever will, because it's usually blended and it usually has too many contaminants when you talk about
Yeah.
footwear. But if you can find plant-based solutions for apparel, and you're diligent about how you put it together, how you print it, how you dye it, how you use closures, how you ship it, and how you get it back, then you can make sure that product goes in the ground and harmlessly goes away and can be regenerative. Footwear, thanks to Luke and other innovators out there, are really developing solutions in that regard. And they are, if we can, again, the devil's in the details. It wasn't just Luke's innovation. It was then how we at Unless put it together. Because Luke
And,
is,
and and he will tell you that he told me that in no uncertain terms during our podcast. If you want to look that up, people
yeah,
out there, it's a great one because he talks about that. You have to collaborate with everybody along the line in order to make this stuff, and one of them is working in the design
yeah.
solutions with people like yourself. That's how new materials.
Other,
That's how new products are made.
exactly. Otherwise, it's just an ingredient that's just one of 9 different things, and the 8 other things are contaminants. So you're just
Yeah,
flushing it back into the oil game again. So to me, you had to have alignment of vision, and once you have that, then you can start to move forward. And I think that's the beautiful thing, because I'll be honest, Allbirds is a company I have great respect for. I know Tim and Joey, the founders, fairly well, and they've used Mirum from Luke, but they've
mm.
stuck together with their sweet foam midsole, outsole, and I don't know how they've constructed it, but because the sweet foam it comes from sugar, it's a really cool thing, but it's called bioplastics because it's fermented to a point where it's become basically a plastic salt
Mm.
made from
Mm.
sugarcane. Big thumbs up. the fact that it was processed to the point where, it goes down this road of fermentation into a polyester type of molecule. That's the part that won't break away. That's the part that won't break down harmlessly at end of life. It will, create a little, casket for your foot if you ever end up in the Pacific Ocean.
Foot caskets is what they're making. They're out of sugar cane, I guess.
Oh no! I honestly, I got a lot of respect. Allbirds is great.
No, I get it though. I mean, the point is well taken. That there's, and I guess it goes along the lines of there's baby steps, right? Somebody's got to be targeting going back to the moon, and somebody's got to be targeting. Okay,
Exactly.
eventually we're getting to Mars, right? I mean, and that's the difference.
I did
right?
kind of both, right? I was in a deep, so I was like, I saw the trip to the moon, and I still wasn't sleeping well, and now so I've stepped out, and I said, well, let's shoot higher and see if we can be the disruptor that brings this into the industry, and then once we figure it out, let's go partner with all the big brands that we love so much and get them on this train.
Yeah, somebody's got to be looking at the next step. Somebody's got to be up there in the ship going, we're going to go there. And somebody's got to be figuring out, well, we got to get here and here first and all that type of stuff, which is very, very cool. So, hey, what's new on the horizon for you guys? What are you guys coming out with next? Belts, ponchos, eyewear?
We're sticking to our knitting, which is, we are a streetwear brand. Like that's our well, we're above category is what we would like to say, but we like to focus on streetwear items that you would wear for every day, like a good hoodie, a good quality hoodie, a good Harry crew, good shorts, a good pant. I'm really excited. It might seem pedestrian, but I'm really excited about the world's first ever plant-based, 100% plant-based sock. I mean, it's like if you think about socks, you think about how many socks you go through. And it just happened to me this morning. I was trying on some socks before I flew to New York, and I was like, I got a hole in my heel. Well, I took the pair and put it in the trash, knowing that's going to landfill, knowing that's going to go emit methane and sit there for 100 years or so. But I just didn't, everybody. I'm not alone in that. So unless
no, you're certainly not.
We have developed a cool ass sock that is 100%, plants and minerals again. The stretch component is the hard part, because whenever you feel stretch, and maybe this is good for your listeners, whenever you feel stretch in product, it basically means melted plastic. So
okay.
all the lycras, all the spandexes, all the nylons out there that stretch is basically a melted plastic that's really, those brands that are really yoga brands only are really in a hard place when it comes to sustainability. So anytime you go stretch, so a sock is not a minor innovation because you've got to have that stretch. And so
otherwise it sucks. It just hangs around your ankle. I got a few of those.
Exactly. And ours may do that. Again, we're in that long dark hallway again.
Yeah.
We're solving ourselves. We found some great experts in the sock world, some former innovators from a sock company called Stance that love what we're doing and love to partner with us, and we're figuring it out. And look for that to come in the next 6-12 months.
I love you. I love it. Give me a couple. I'll put them on my kids' feet and let them run around, because they have shoes, but they enjoy running around the driveway and stuff in their socks. I don't know why.
Everybody does. Everybody does. Nobody wants shoes on.
Yeah, nobody wants shoes. Well, I live in Tennessee. We just wear our toes, basically.
There you go.
That's basically it. That's very cool socks. I'll be looking for that. The other question is this: why are you calling me from New York if you're from Oregon, man? What is going on there? What do you got going on in New York this week?
Super cool event. So Plastic Planet is run by Sean Sutherland. You should know that name in your listening world. She's hosting with her Plastic Planet crew a plastic free, the first event of Plastic Free. And check out Plastic Free. They just launched their resource guide, which basically is a guide how to solve for, every element you want to make, every item you want to do. It's for designers and creators as a toolbox to not always choose plastic as your first and last solution. So they've done all the hard yards of figuring out what a menu and toolbox would look like for all sorts of designers and creators. And then she's having the first event, which is on Thursday at the Parsons School of Design here in New York. And it sounds like a little bit of an ad here, but I'm super excited to put it together. And so Luke's going to be there. I'm going to be there. I think Pangaya is going to be there, and a few others that are kind of like, trying to get in here and really just open dialogue of sharing what we're doing and meeting people afterwards, and a good place to network and learn from other people with the same passion. Very
cool. So is this the first annual? Is that what you said, or?
I believe it is. Again, I'm not the Plastic Planet crew, but
I mean, this is ongoing. It's going to happen.
Yeah. So Plastic Free just launched, I think, in the last I'm going to say 30, 45 days. So this
Oh,
is
okay,
the
cool.
event of it.
Excellent. That's excellent stuff. So where are people going and what are they going to find when they get there to get the Unless Collective?
When they go to get Unless Collective, or when they come to the place in New
Wh-
York this week?
No, where do they go to find out more about
Yeah.
Unless Collective, and what are they going to find when they get there?
Yeah, so unlesscollective.com is the website. You'll find our lookbooks there and everything. You'll find everything from cargo hat to work shirts to like I said, knitwear, some wovens, and footwear, of course, and all in a very stylish, contemporary way. We're very Pacific Northwest proud. So it's a company that's been based on the utility, workwear, streetwear, craftsmanship of the Pacific Northwest.
Mm-hmm.
Cold water surf meets skate meets the elements. So we like to say we make things from the elements to go out into the elements to return to the elements. So
Oh, I love that. That's awesome.
that's what you can expect. So every time I try to wear something that's not Unless, I just don't feel right anymore. So I'm definitely a proud spokesman each and every day.
Very cool. I appreciate it so much. It's been the Sustainiacs. Reach out to us anywhere. You just research the Sustainiacs or hit me up at the Sustainiacs@gmail.com with any questions or anything like that. And I'll pass them along to my new good friend here, Eric. And yeah, we will definitely catch up again, my friend, because I'm going to get some stuff. I'm going to wear it on air and we're going to compare socks and have all that other good
And
stuff.
I would just ask anybody, including yourself, give us feedback. Man, we are a startup, and we believe in the feedback culture. So help us get better, help us scale this.
Yeah, amen, brother. I'm a big believer in feedback. I always loved it, and people would call me like in my other jobs, they would call me and complain. And some people were nice enough to apologize for that, and I would tell them, no, these are the ones that I appreciate the most. Are the people who take the time to tell me what was wrong, because most people just go away and they never come back.
Yep.
And that doesn't help anybody. It doesn't help anybody. And we don't need just a ton of yes, man. We do need people to help with the movement, but making it better is the key. So yeah, man, give the feedback. Get it going. Peace and love, everybody.
All right. Take care. Thank you, Michael.